This episode is brought to you by Daniel House Club.
Daniel House Club simplifies the process of sourcing and purchasing by giving designers access to over 150 trade vendors in a single place.
They've saved designers over $2.5 million in purchase costs in the past year.
You'll get paid whether you send a cart to your client or you purchase directly.
And they'll help handle the order logistics.
Hotties can join Daniel House Club and save 50% off their first year of membership by going to danielhouse.club/HYDC today.
Welcome to the Hot Young Designers Club podcast.
I'm Rebecca Plum, your big sister.
And I'm Shaun, your GBF.
We're not that hot or that young,
but we believe it's a state of mind that helps us build adaptable and profitable businesses.
We rely on the support of our design besties to get through each day.
So let's explore the emotional, practical, and humorous sides of being interior designers.
Welcome to the club.
Hey, Shaun.
What's up, Rebecca?
We have a special guest today.
Let's welcome Max Humphrey.
Hi, Max.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for
so
joining
much for
us.
Doing this. I don't think we've ever met before. We've spotted you a couple times at High Point. There are the Birkenstocks and the hat. Like you're super recognizable in the crowd.
On brand.
Yep, always.
At least it makes it easy for you too, because I don't know about you, but I feel like it's like part of a uniform for you of just, I don't know. In LA, everybody's like trying to be someone or sell a script somewhere, which
right.
It doesn't feel like that's definitely not the Max Humphrey lifestyle.
No, it's my goal to get sponsored by Birkenstock.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you should be.
So shout out to Birkenstock.
Yeah,
shout out to Germany.
Special collection.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Your next collection. So Max, tell our listeners about you, what you're about and where you're at.
All right. I'm an interior designer and author. I live in Portland, Oregon. I grew up in New England. I went to film school in Boston, and then I moved to LA and worked in the TV film industry on the production side, like the getting coffee side, not the art department side, which you would maybe think since I became an interior designer. But I worked in TV production, and then I was playing music with some friends, and we got a record deal, and we all quit our jobs. And then I spent my early 20s touring in a punk band all over the US and England. That was a couple years. And then when we sort of called it quits and went back to LA, that's when I did some soul and career searching and rented an apartment, sort of Larchmont Village area of LA. Interior design wasn't even a term I knew or a word. I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
But I was decorating my apartment while I was looking for jobs, and people would come over and be like, "Oh, this is cool." And that's kind of when it clicked that I was like, "Oh, is there a job version of making your apartment look cute?" And that's when I kind of dove in and figured out what the career of interior design was.
How long ago was that?
I moved to Portland 7 years ago, and I was in the design industry in LA for about 7 years. So I've been in the biz for maybe 13 or 14 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And that rest is history. So I worked in LA for a design firm for a number of years. Then I moved to Portland 7 years ago and started my own firm.
And so you have a very distinctive style. We've kind of joked about your quote unquote brand, but it is a brand. It's a very visually consistent. How would you describe it? And have you always had that?
I describe it, the term I use is modern Americana, which is the term I always that stuff was always really hard for me. Like when I was doing like press early on, and they would be like, "Oh, what's your style?" And I would be like, "I don't know," and somehow I launched somehow, I don't know. I honestly can't remember if I came up with it or if someone else did, but I landed on this term, modern Americana, and it really clicked for me. It's what I named my first book. I would describe it as I have a very nostalgia-based sensibility. And what I've learned is when I look at, I'm from small town New England, and when I look back at, I wasn't the kid that would decorate their room or go with their parents to pick out paint swatches. Like I didn't care about that stuff growing up. I cared about G.I. Joes and video games. But now when I look back at pictures of my house growing up, you could see a through line from that sort of vintagey preppy adjacent New England style that I was surrounded by growing up to what I'm into now. So it's sort of this like full circle thing where I realized that these patterns and textures and pieces are all the things that are like in my blood from where I grew up.
Do you feel like it's one of those, oh my God, I've become my parents moments?
Yeah, completely. Because I hate, like, my parents, I wrote about this in my first book, but my parents would take me, we didn't have like antiques, but we had vintage stuff. And my parents would go to vintage malls, in New England, Vermont, and drag me. And I would be so bummed. It's so boring.
Oh no.
Sit in the car, like the hot car, listening to the radio. And maybe the only one I remember, there was one in Vermont that had one pinball machine in the lobby, and I would go play pinball. But where was I going with this? But but anyway, yes, now it's my favorite thing to do is go to vintage malls and listen to the music I was stuck listening to on the car radio from when I was a kid. So I like
integrated it.
Yeah, it's just all full circle. Like all this, oh my God, I'm stuck in the car listening to Ricky, Don't Lose That Number, Steely Dan, and I'm 7 years old and my parents are at a vintage mall. And now like all I want to do is drive around and listen to Steely Dan and go to vintage stores.
Aww.
So, but it took becoming punk, I think, in between these.
Yeah.
It took punk rock to kind of like bring me back to like that dad rock style. So yeah, it's the quote is design is autobiography. I think interior design is autobiography, and it's been sort of this like therapy for me as an adult now, where I can kind of use these design projects to reconnect with my upbringing and parents and stuff like that. So design is autobiography, design is therapy.
You're like feeding your inner child.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe you're right. And a lot of this is, especially because my style is kind of nostalgic and childlike at times, there's something about going back in time with the way I'm designing now, back to simpler times.
Yeah, for
before
sure.
podcasts and before
everything
TikTok
was online. And
yeah.
And
right.
Also, would you just die to be back at those vintage malls in the 1980s? I mean, it was probably so full of amazing stuff.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah. They've been picked clean by now. But yeah. And also, I'll go back and look at pictures and I'll ask my mom, oh, is this quilt still around? And she'll be like, that piece of junk has been gone for, 40 years. But yeah, I want all that stuff.
Yeah, it's not letting your parents give away everything until you've had a chance to pick through it. Suddenly feels important,
right.
But you couldn't have convinced a teenage version of me that I could care about any of the stuff in my parents' house.
Or parent me. I can't begin to predict what my Gen A kid is going to like in 10 years. Like, their style is so different.
She's probably going to like it. All of it.
But what?
All of it.
I'm not keeping all of it. Especially if it's, like you said, it's to me cheap right now, but she might think it's cool. I don't know.
Exactly. Can you share a little bit more about what Max Humphrey, the company, looks like right now, as far as like your team and the scale of what you guys are doing?
Yeah, it's myself. I have one full-time employee, Isabel. Shout out to Isabel. It took me a really long time to hire somebody. I was really resistant. I wanted to do everything myself. Delegating has always been really difficult for me. It took the right person to come along. So it's been over a year now, I think, that I've had an employee, and I have a remote bookkeeper. That's sort of a new thing too. It's another thing that I sort of always prided myself on. I could do everything, but I've always tried not to grow. It's always been kind of a New Year's resolution is do not grow.
Okay.
Sort of like figuratively and
physically.
And physically and emotionally. But I just wanted to keep things small, and I've always wanted to have a hand in everything. But having help now I can't imagine life without that, and having a bookkeeper to keep an eye on things. I mean, I was just living on Post-it notes for years and years and years. And I don't know, I have colleagues and friends that have grown too fast and have hired a team of people and had to let people go. And that's really scary. But also, it's a gig lifestyle now. I outsource quite a few things. I get help with architectural drawings from a range of freelancers and graphic designers. And I sometimes have a publicist. So, but sort of day to day, it's myself and one full-time person.
So before you had Isabel and your bookkeeper, were you outsourcing to that gig economy, or is that all kind of new?
No, I would always, I don't do technical drawings. So I would always have somebody that would do my AutoCAD for me. Something I can kind of recognize things that I'd be good at and not good at. And that's not something I'd be good at. So I've always had a person or two kind of on hand that I can have help doing renderings or drawings and that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with my CAD at this point because I've been doing it mostly myself, but it's just taking me out of doing all the other parts of the business that I want to enjoy more. And the reality is like anybody else, almost anyone else with some experience can do CAD, and I don't need to anymore. But it is hard to let go of some of that stuff because I feel like I've had so much control over it for so long.
Yeah, it's good to let go. I would obsess over it and I wouldn't be, I get really bogged down and, I want to put a plant on the countertop, but then I'd be like, what are my plant options?
Oh,
and
yeah.
I want to put a soap dispenser, but
Like
I want to do the right soap.
Yeah, like the CAD book templates look funny. I don't want that one. Can you make better looking book ones? And
yeah, and then I get in a whirlwind of things that don't matter, but as a designer, I can't not care about.
Yeah.
So it's good for me to stay away from that stuff.
Just let someone else, it's good enough because I'm not going to spend all the hours trying to fix it or do it. So what they gave us is great.
Right.
I think that's like a really refreshing thing to hear for me because I have struggled with growing my team. I have PTSD from a previous career and I don't know. I don't want to do it all, but I also don't want to just expand because I feel like I have to. But how do you keep it manageable? Are you actively keeping a concise amount of work or a limit to the amount of work you have from projects? Because I know you also do a lot of other stuff. You have collections and books.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a straight answer, but I do know my strengths and weaknesses. And one of my strengths is the ability to prioritize. I'm always on time and I can hit a deadline when there is one. And then it's sort of up to me to put on how to make that happen. But I don't let that stuff stress me out. And I don't like feeling behind or cramming. I don't know. I'm good at working smart. I'm getting better at turning jobs away. Part of what's been helpful for me is I joined the expert platform not too long ago, which allows me to do online design, 1 hour online design consultations. And it's been a way for me to not turn work away because these are the same sort of type of clients that would have been emailing me going, oh, I just have a dining room or I just have this and that. And I would have taken that on because I'm just, always expecting the bottom to drop out of, the design career or the industry.
Yeah.
So I'm as good as my next job. I get excited about new work. And so for a while there, I was just saying, yes, 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 taking everything on, even if in my head I was going, this job's too small for you or whatever. And so being able to filter people through the expert where I can just design for them for an hour at a time, it's very structured, has been a way for me to manage that. But before I was I fell underwater a bit. And just, it's turning clients down, I think is one of the hardest things for designers to do. No matter how sort of big you get, it still seems like that's across the board. When I talk to people, that's hard. As much as we can recognize a red flag, I think there's also something inherently competitive that interior designers all have. And for me, I like getting the job. I like being the one to decide if I'm going to do this or not. So
like the one
when I do get a
like
potential client, right, I want to be the one to turn the job away, basically. And sometimes what is easy for me to turn down is when a potential client says, I'm interviewing 3 designers for this project. And for me, that's okay. I'm out. I used to hustle for that, but now it's, if you're not coming to me because you want me to do my thing, then I'm out. So that's the only one where it's easy for me to say no to.
Do you feel like, do you noticed when that switch happened? Was it like a project or you're just slowly, I don't need to fight for this anymore?
I can't pinpoint exactly, but I do remember kind of specifically where like clients would come to me and they would be, we'd chat and decide to work together, and they would show me inspiration, or magazine tear sheets or Pinterest. And it would be kind of across the board, like here's rooms I like. And then kind of all of a sudden they were showing me pictures from my own portfolio, like, which had never happened before. It was always some, like probably higher end, more aspirational stuff than, sort of adjacent to my style, but maybe turned up a notch. And I think once I had a little bit more of my own portfolio, that switched. Now it still comes up and you get a variety of inspiration, but now more so they're like, oh, the project you did in Bend, that's why we're calling you, or the project, whatever. So yeah, there was that was kind of a switch.
Yeah, that's come up a couple of times. I think on Joy Williams' episode, she talked about really getting to a place where you're interviewing the client more so and accepting them as a client, which is so flipped for me right now personally, but that just seems definitely the place to be, because it's not really like a power thing, but it kind of is. Like, who's driving the car? Like, we talk about that a lot. Like, you don't want to feel like you're just
facilitating someone else's a client's ideas.
Right.
You don't want to just be their project manager. You want to be their designer. You want to be hired for your style and taste level.
Yeah,
exactly.
I don't want to be hired for my project management skills. And
same.
I want to be hired for my ideas.
Yeah, I don't want to be the one to yay or nay a bunch of stuff that they're looking at. Of, oh, that was a cool desk you found, but what about these 4 other ones that I found? I'm like, oh, can we just let me bring this together?
Unless it's on a consulting basis, it sounds like I do something similar to the expert, where like, you can have my time for an hour and I'll be your girlfriend that'll yes or no you on your shopping. But how do you handle those appointments?
I'm fine with it if that's what the expert's for. It's literally that. It's sort of people that are design savvy that have done some of the work and they want somebody to sign off on it or turn it up a notch. But that's not sustainable for me as like that's not what I want to do for my full-time day job. That's the sort of side hustle, texting with a friend at night that's asking you for design advice. That's not a job.
Yeah, it's not creatively fulfilling, but I do a lot of kind of one-off consultations. And I say that similarly, I think, to what you were saying, is because I have there's a lot of people that need design help, but aren't going to hire a full service designer. So it is just like a way to give more accessible design to people, but still feel like it's a win-win situation where, yeah, I'm not getting dragged through something unfulfilling, but I do think it's important and helpful. I think it's fun too, but not everyone does. Do you see when you have expert appointments, do you have multiple appointments with people? Do they?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. It's really cool when sometimes it's not necessary. It's a lot of times it's a problem room. And so it's like somebody can't get over a furniture plan or just a scheme for one room. But I've done a bunch of them where we're just sort of working our way through a house. It's a lot of second homes or cabins and kind of, lodge vibes, but I've had a number of them where we're on our third, fourth, fifth call. There's some of them you just can't get through everything in 55 minutes,
no
50
way.
minutes, whatever. So yeah, and it feels really great when you get booked again. So it's cool. It feels good.
They like me.
Yeah. Well, I was able to, it's almost like a game show because you're just like, boom, on the spot. Yeah. And sometimes people submit, pictures and stuff before, and you can look and kind of take it in. And sometimes they don't, and you're just like, boom, we're in the room.
The lights are up.
Go. And so the lights are up, and which is kind of like, I feel like it's kind of good it's like it's like good exercise, design exercise, because it's our job to make decisions. So
it's like running drills. Yeah.
Right.
You're just like quick fire challenge, make your brain work differently.
Yeah. It does feel like kind of like you're on a game show, which is fun too.
And your gut instincts sort of take over after a while every time. And you're like, okay, let's move. We only have an hour. Let's make I want you to feel like I made some decisions and got some stuff done for you, so they feel like they get the worth
totally
out of that money they're investing in it.
Yeah, it's a really good exercise in interpreting a client's reaction, because you know what that's like when some people are just so poker faced, and sometimes they light up, and it's interesting to have these calls and kind of like see all that happening in real time with people you've never met before and have no sort of relationship with, and then you can kind of tell, I got it, or I didn't. I need to keep going until I see them light up. Like
regroup my plan around this to help. I obviously didn't hit the bullseye that time. Let's try it one more.
Right. Because you can tell usually.
Yeah, I've had those presentations even where you leave and you're like, ooh, they left feeling lower than the excitement they came in at. So I missed a couple things here. Even though they're being polite, you're like, I need to hit better on those revisions. Like I've got to fix a couple things.
What does your ideal project look like? I know you do residential and commercial, right?
I do. Yeah, I don't know if I have an ideal. I like variety, I feel like there's certain types of projects that I could kind of do with my eyes closed now. And so if it's out of the box a little bit, or the stuff that I've been doing in the commercial sphere has been exciting for me because it's so new and there's just a different language and process. So that's been fun just because it's new. Yeah. Like residential single family homes for married couples with 2.5 kids are kind of my bread and butter, but also like I can do that. I know I can do that. So anything that's sort of not that is fun, which kind of leaves it to commercial stuff.
I would imagine the client involvement feels different too, not quite as emotionally attached like that.
For commercial clients, you mean?
For commercial, yeah. Is that true or not?
Kind of, although I've done a couple of projects that have been like family owned, and so that's kind of a different. Also, I've done some stuff that's corporate, and that's kind of a world of its own because people get there's like a real protectiveness feeling that the corporate clients have towards their projects.
Okay.
And then it's just sort of a question of how can I put my spin on this?
Is it when it's commercial spaces, what types of spaces have you been working on?
Let's see. I've done a couple of tasting rooms, both wine tasting rooms that are connected to vineyards. And I did a hard cider tasting room. I did a bank headquarters last year, which was a whole new world. And let's see. Yeah, there's some others.
Yeah, I wouldn't think of a bank.
Yeah, kind of all over.
I wouldn't think of a bank being particularly adventurous. Before I was in design, I spent 13 years in banking, and it was a very like bureaucratic, heavy type of environment. But obviously, it depends on the scale of how big it is. But it was definitely not in an adventure-seeking type of place. But they spent a lot of money on design for some of these spaces that they were in.
Well, I think a lot of it now with these corporate or commercial or office spaces, like the return to sort of going from remote work to trying to get employees back to the office, like the design of the space that they're going to plays a big part in that. So I wanted to make it look like a place that people wanted to go back to work at,
Yeah, I didn't want to go back to my cubicle ever.
Right.
And
great.
You don't even see a lot of cubicles anymore. I mean, that's sort of out the door.
I know.
It's more communal with like break off spaces. So it's like little zones, that sort of trend.
Yeah. No, I think that'd be really exciting because, I mean, at least then hopefully too, there's a little bit of that idea that in commercial environments, they understand that it's not like a forever home the way that residential clients are thinking of, we're probably not going to touch this again for more than 20, 30 years for a lot of people. But in commercial, they kind of know that there's a lifespan on these projects and that they are going to have to reinvest, or if a lease changes, they're going to move. So they're not, maybe there isn't as much investment in that idea of, this has to be forever. Yeah, that's a lot of pressure at least I feel that a lot of pressure for residential projects.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, Shaun, I don't know about you, but Pinterest has been on my to-do list of I got to figure out how to use it again for literally years.
It's definitely one of those things that if you've just been using it as a brain dump location, you're not using it right.
Yeah, Pinterest is not just for inspo anymore, although that's still there. it can be super strategic and actually get you new clients.
Yes. So we're sort of reframing the thought process around Pinterest with our very first Hottie Homeroom course, Pinterest for Interior Designers Masterclass.
It's a two-parter, so you get both sessions for the same price. And if you can catch the live session, we recommend it. Otherwise, it's going to be recorded and available to watch on your own. But you also get 2 workbooks that really are going to show you the step-by-step of everything we talk about.
Yes. And we've partnered with our Pinterest expert, Leah Reiner, and she's really power packed the courses so that way you can optimize everything that you're doing to make Pinterest work for you to drive new traffic and help generate more leads for your business.
You're not just listening to us talk about blah, blah, blah. Here's why Pinterest is great. Yes, we have an actual expert who does this day in and day out, and she's going to be showing us all the details and how-tos.
Yep, you got it. How to find trends, how to put them in captions to get people to read them. And probably the best part for me was realizing that Pinterest pins stay active for months, sometimes years longer than what the Instagram algorithm does.
And you don't have to show up and show your face like you do on Instagram. I know some of you don't want to do that. So it's a way to get yourself out there without getting yourself out there.
Exactly. So head to shop.hotyoungdesignersclub.com and learn more about our Pinterest for Interior Designers Masterclass.
See you there, hotties.
What would you say if you're open to talking to us about billables or lessons that you've learned on hourly rates over the years?
Yeah. Happy to talk about it. I experimented a lot, and what I learned was I'm not good at tracking my hours, and I earn more money when I charge a flat fee. Like now it's just sort of a question of nailing that flat fee because I'm trying to, you have to anticipate billing hourly is great because you can charge for every minute of time. And if a client is giving you trouble, you can be charging for that. And if you charge a flat fee and you get sent back to the drawing board 100 times, it's different. So part of it is trying to anticipate, what the clients are going to be like. But what I started out charging an hourly fee way early on. That seemed to be the easiest way to jump right into projects. Then I played around with sort of monthly fees, I guess you would say, where it was just a batch of hours just totaled up as a monthly. And I would tell a client, this was 6-7 years ago. Let's do, a monthly fee for 3 months and see where we get. That was sort of a gateway to a flat fee. There was something always really scary for me about putting one number down on a proposal and sliding it across the table rather than let's just get in. But as the years went by, I was like, I'm way undercharging. I don't like tracking my hours. Sometimes I'll take 30 hours to do one thing and 1 hour to do something else, and it doesn't look good on an invoice when you do that.
Yeah,
I never really got pushback, but it was just like I didn't like doing it. I don't like thinking about. It's like these ideas hit when they hit, and so getting into a flat fee, which I still break up monthly. It's usually a flat fee for 6 months or 9 months or 12 months. And it's with monthly payments rather than a upfront and, rather than a like 50% deposit and then a balance due. I really don't like that either. I feel like I spend the money sooner if I'm given a lump sum. So long story short, I charge a flat fee that I break up into monthly payments, which it's helpful for me to kind of, that way I can kind of project what the next 6 or 12 months will look like from a design fee perspective, because I know what I've got coming in. And now that I've got bookkeepers, they've been able to say, this is your overhead. This is your minimum that you need to clear every month to
just break even,
pay yourself, pay your employee, support your French fry lifestyle, and, pay for my office and that sort of stuff. So that's been helpful, because then I can go, okay, I need to have 3 jobs at this much per month to hit that number, rather than thinking about I need this many jobs for this year. So it just compartmentalizing it into months is easier for me.
Yeah, it seems more digestible that way.
Right. So it's psychological, and that's sort of how, I don't know, I would like to be billed too. Also, I feel like that kind of protects everybody if the project goes wrong and we're 3 months in. It's a little bit easier to rearrange that way rather than if you've gotten a 50% deposit, and that comes up. Sometimes it's like this. The scope has changed and we need to adjust, or there's a project delay, we can put these payments on hold, or this isn't working and we need to, you can't fire me, I quit. It's easier to do that when we're in for a couple of months payments rather than
leaving is that much harder when you're like, oh, we're on the hook for a lot though. We either have to deliver a lot more suddenly or give that back to them and that hurts. Just like you said, you're already planned to how you're going to use that cash or use it somewhere else. So it's already gone.
Right.
Do you have your project process set up to kind of align with those monthly payments, or do you not think of it that way?
No, I really don't think of it that way. I can't.
Yeah, no, it would be hard. That would be the challenge.
Yeah, it's not okay. After month 1, we'll have done this. After month 2, I imagine there's some clients that would really appreciate that. But no, it doesn't work like that for me. I try and manage that expectation ahead of time, and you can kind of tell. There's some clients that are like super involved and we're texting every other day. And there's some clients where it's, okay, we've got a meeting in 6 weeks and we won't be speaking until then. Yeah. And so you kind of have to gear your process differently. Like a lot of times my projects design themselves kind of in real time as we go, like a piece at a time or a thing at a time. And so it's a little bit less like we're hitting milestones and we're doing like a big presentation. It's a little more like bits and pieces, design as we go. My clients tend to be pretty involved and it's a little more collaborative.
How do you share that process with them? Just like from a app standpoint, I'm curious.
Well, I do. What do you mean?
Well, how do they?
Is there an app for this?
Yeah. Well, are you using Google Slides like that? You're like showing the evolution of, so they can see in real time what you're doing, and you say, "Here's this piece that I found, how it fits in with this piece."
I like to shop first with people. So if it's a new build, I'll pick a category like tile or renovation or whatever, and we'll go do some tile shopping or some plumbing shopping just to kind of get it started. It's also a way for me, when we do something like that, it's a way for me to kind of gauge, can a client make a decision on something without having seen other things? Mm-hmm. Can they interpret, this is great tile. I don't know what the rest of the bathroom is going to look like, or even where this is going to go yet, but I love it. Let's consider it. That's good. And when it's kind of cool, but I don't see how it's going to fit in with the whole picture until I see everything, that's not good. Because I don't shop like that, for myself. I don't need or want to see a full room plan before I make a decision. So this is something, again, that I try and bring up because this has come up frequently for me where it's like some clients aren't geared for that. They need to see a design presentation with everything picked out to make a decision. So we go shopping to at least see how that goes, or if it's furnishings, we'll go sit on some stuff. I'll see, sometimes nothing that we see sticks, and sometimes there's a jumping off point. But I organize things in Google Slides. We use Studio Manager to track, items and stuff like that. But I do little, they're not mood boards, but they're the pieces that we're selecting, in Google Slides. And then eventually there's sort of mini presentations, I guess, where here's 50% of a room and here's 50% of another room, and let's get some feedback. I like to get as much feedback in real time as possible, so I'm not like going down a completely wrong path and presenting in a whole room or a whole house where I'm like, okay, I totally missed the mark. Yeah. I feel like clients like to be, it feels a little bit to me more like their house than when they've been involved in all the decisions along the way, rather than like a designer came in and just did it for them. That's maybe package, a Portland thing, right? Mm-hmm. I think, it might be a Portland thing where there's a little bit less of a oh, my designer, my designer, my designer. There's a little bit less of that. People
Also-
here like to feel like they did it, you know.
Well, they're also pretty creative. There's a lot of creatives in Portland, and I feel like
Tell
it's
me
a
about
pretty
it.
design forward city. So everyone would want
Everyone's
like
a
have an
designer.
opinion.
Yeah. Everyone's got something to say about every material or finish, or they have all these ideas they come in with probably. So
They don't know how to execute it or find it.
yeah.
That's really
Right.
interesting. It's really a timely kind of conversation we're having, because I just had an experience where this went awry for me. But I think as an industry, we're told as designers, we have to have this big epic presentation. And I never really thought of, I don't design my house that way. I design one thing at a time, and I'm building a plan, but it is like one decision at a time, and letting like it gel and marinate and seeing what kind of comes at me next. So I never really actually thought of it as a way to structure for clients. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's not for everyone. I do get pushback, and it doesn't, and then we break up. It's happened. And sometimes people don't know that they can't, you know, or that isn't for them. Also, I don't like doing big installs. That's not something that's worked for me. Where, you know, typically you would think like you do a big presentation and then you order everything and do a big install.
Mhm.
Like that, the trend that I see for at least my own work is, okay, we made a bunch of decisions. Let's order this stuff and get it over to you. You know, if it's furniture, why not? And then we can be kind of building off of that. So let's order some sofas and beds, and that's how sort of, I don't know, unless it's a new build and that timing really works. Just those big 5-day installs where the moving truck comes. That's just not how I work.
It's really hard to track all of those pieces. And then it's also like for me, when I've tried to do that for clients, we're still missing enough stuff that if the main goal, for example, was like, I just want to know all in what I'm going to spend on this whole entire room. And you're like, well, that's really hard to say exactly, because there are still enough pieces in the air between finished carpentry or other details that I never really have a full and complete picture. And a lot of clients start to get really uncomfortable with, I can't live with the ambiguity of not knowing where my number will be. And I feel like most of the good stuff comes out of clients who know that there's going to be like some give and take, plus or minus on a budget number or a range that they gave. And what you're doing is sort of that way of, do you like these pieces? Do you want them? Do you feel they're worth the money that we're going to put into them? Great. Let's start getting orders started then. And then we'll figure out the rest of the stuff along the way, right?
And build off those pieces. So you're kind of building layer by layer and making the foundational decisions and then building off of that. So you're like locking it in one level at a time, right?
Totally.
Yeah, that's something I needed to hear today. So thank you.
I mean, it's backfired plenty of times, but you know, when it works, it works, and it feels more natural and organic, and less like a designer came and swooped in a day.
Right.
And everybody, or at least I shouldn't say everybody, but like for us, a lot of the clients we want to work with, you know, through our design companies is really based on, we want to create something that feels collected and layered, and that you didn't just buy a whole room from a catalog page. And it's really hard to accomplish that with that design philosophy of, it's a 100% presentation, then revisions, and then we start placing orders. It's hard to accomplish all of that layered and collected look if everything is truly happening all at the same time.
Well, it seems like it leaves room for vintage too. Is that a big part of it?
Yeah, definitely. Because you need to buy that stuff when it comes up. You can't put that in a presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't plan for it for 8 weeks and hope that that piece is still going to be there. Okay. That's what I've always kind of been stuck on, is because I obviously, if you see my background, love vintage in my own home, but being able to present it to clients and have it, unless you're inventory and stuff, it's always been like a how do I do that situation. So, okay, I'm going to think about that. So kind of on that, what is the like most challenging part of your business, or the different aspects of your business?
Gosh, I don't know. There's still this like weird arranged marriage sort of feeling about clients where you meet once or talk once, and then just based on one meeting or Zoom call, you have to send a design proposal with a big money number attached to it, and then be committing to
Life together.
a year or 2 years or 3 years of your time. And it seems like you're just like, as much as I think I can spot a red flag, or not a red flag. What's the other one? What do they say now? Beige flag?
Beige flag.
Beige
Yeah.
flag. Yeah.
As much as I think I can spot those, it's still, you never know until you're in. So that's tricky, because then, then I don't know, it takes a little while. You want to date for a little while before you get married, probably.
Well, because you have to go through something challenging together. Like in any relationship, like you don't really know the person until you see them at their worst, or
Right.
going through something hard, which a renovation and remodel, or spending a shitload of money, like that's the extreme. And until you're like dealing with that, you don't know how people are going to be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So do you have you don't have to share everything, but like an internal process of vetting? Are you like, I know Shaun has a little list of notes on his phone of like like his red flags list of just things to remember or try to vet. I don't know. I need to get better at it.
No, I don't. I mean, you gotta go with your gut. It usually like, I can usually tell after the first presentation's the wrong word, but the first time I share some things, that can tell me so much. And so even sometimes I've tried to delay sending a proposal until we've worked together for a little bit. So sometimes I'll suggest, let's work together. Let's work hourly for a month. Or, can I have 20 hours for this first month, and let me show you some stuff and see if we click. Cause then I can tell, first meeting I can tell, but first presentation, first time I share stuff, I can tell how the rest of the project is going to go, but that's not always possible. So
yeah. Cause some people want that. I would imagine that a lot of clients are like, oh, well, no, if I'm going to spend money, I want to know that this is going to work out. And then that's probably telling you right now, oh, well, this won't be good down the road. Like we need to get like a chance to develop a fit with one another and not feel trapped probably on both sides of the equation, right? For you and for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard. You never know until you know.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because there is sort of the Instagram world of it all that wants to make us believe that everything is like perfection and everybody's got this solid process and everyone hits a home run with every designer and every client. It's just like a match made in heaven. And internally, we all know that can't be true. So it's good to just hear it out loud a little bit more. So I'm sure our listeners will also appreciate that you shared that.
Yeah. It's a fine line. Also, it's a service industry that is run by creative people. So it's, I don't know if we're all geared for that. A lot of us are great being creative, but we're not all great service providers. So that sort of takes a lot of practice.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of know when to push back and know when to, fight for things, and then know when to compromise. And it just takes experience.
Right.
It's weird for me now to hear, sometimes like I'll speak to design schools,
Sure.
speak to students. And in a lot of, it seems like young designers now, or even not necessarily new designers, I should say, are going from zero to the boss. They're starting a design firm without having worked worked for anyone before.
Anywhere.
They're just like, they're going from
like food service,
from school to being a designer, which seems insane to me, because you just learn so much. You can learn so much, you need to learn so much on the job that you can't learn at a school or online, or, you can teach yourself SketchUp, but until you've sat in a room with a married couple arguing about
hardware,
money and hardware, like until you've done that for real, I don't know how you could put your name on the door.
Yeah, because I think something you're touching on a lot is the psychological aspect of what we do and the emotional part. And I don't think we hear a lot about that in our industry. And it seems like you've structured your business and your process to work best with managing your creativity and the emotions of clients and yourself, which I think
I
is
try
really
to. I
important.
also try to put out there online how I am in real life, and which is like which is very creative and chill and just professional enough. But I don't want to, put out there, like, you can kind of tell when designers are not writing their own Instagram captions and that sort of thing.
Or they're
so
like,
I want to put enough of my own personality out there, because that's how clients find me.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to be like, whoa, we've been following you online and you're nothing like that in real life.
Yeah, like
I think that weeds people out a little bit. Right. Yeah. I don't want to catfish any
I still think of when I still think very vividly of when you had your project with pink in it, in the ducks, and it was like the workout space, and then
the ducting.
People were asking you about what's that color, and you said it's "fuck you, pay me pink." And
yeah,
and I don't know. For me, I love seeing that because, one, I'm glad that you stand in that space of, I am a designer, I get paid to do this. I'll do this for you, but you are going to have to give something for it. But also the idea that the Instagram is not a place where we just give everything away for free. And it helps to combat that idea of, just because I'm putting myself out there publicly doesn't mean you get all of me or all of what I do. I'm just giving you a part of it. So it is sort of like the reminder that there's a transaction involved is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that didn't win me too many followers. Maybe
new friends.
That maybe backfired a little bit, but I feel a little bit differently about that now. If it's more like now I just give all that info away if it's asked in the right way. But yeah, it's true. It's not. I mean, Instagram is literally just people asking you what paint colors are. That's
until we all die.
A way to, if there's a way to monetize that, that would be great. Yeah. Also, that's my personality too. And if that turns a potential client off, then we're not going to get along anyway. So it's, it's another way to kind of weed people out.
Yeah. If they're offended by something that's kind of a joke, but also kind of not.
Totally.
It's setting boundaries too.
It's that attract and repel of, say the stuff that you want that will get you the people you want. So like people who will love vintage, I'm going to show them that and tell them what that works like. And then the person who's just here because they want to pick my brain, at least now, you have, probably at that time you didn't have the expert. Now you have the expert, which is, hey, book me on the expert and you can ask me that and I will tell you stuff like that. And I'm okay sharing stuff with you if you're already going to book me and we're going to talk, like open book.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about like your collections and how you got started with those?
Sure. Any in particular or just in general?
I think in general, you're doing Pendler, Chasing Paper. What else do you have?
Yeah, I have wallpaper with Chasing Paper. My first collection came out 2 years ago, and I'm about to launch my second collection with them, and later in this fall. Later in the fall, I have fabric with Sunbrella. It's manufactured by Sunbrella and it's available to the trade through Pendler.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Window treatments with Hartman and Forbes, who are a trade woven window treatment brand. And what else? I'm working on candles with the brand in Seattle. I'm working on coffee with the brand here in Portland. That's sort of a passion project. And some other stuff in the works. How it came about, it's all based on relationships. None of these brands were cold calls. It's brands that I've been the best client of for years and years. The number one thing designers ask me is about, product collaborations. Yeah. And it's not like I'm going to a brand that I've never even worked with before or purchased from and asking to collaborate with. These are brands that my collection with Sunbrella kicked off 10 years ago. Basically, my relationship with them started 10 years ago. It started because Sunbrella was the sponsor of a show house that I participated in. And I met the marketing people and design some of the design people, corporate people, and stayed in touch. And I would use Sunbrella fabrics and participate in other sort of marketing-y things. And then it was a long game. That's the point of this. It wasn't just like this thing that I didn't just slide into their DM a year ago and was like, collab ? Chasing Paper, I used their wallpapers all the time, and I would tag them and share with them. And that was actually a DM. There, Elizabeth, who owns the company, is the other end of the Instagram. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Now she's going to get bothered by people. But I guess going backwards, I've always done a lot of custom stuff and DIY stuff. And prior to designing a fabric collection with Sunbrella, I've designed custom fabrics just on my own. I wanted to learn how it worked. Yeah. I asked, I developed some ideas. I had somebody translate those into design files. I found a way to get them printed. They didn't go anywhere. I used, looking back, they weren't great, but I did the process myself. I invested a little bit of money to do it. Same with wallpaper. Before Chasing Paper came out, I had an idea for a wallpaper, and I spent months and months and months developing it. Again, hiring a graphic designer because I can't do that stuff, to translate the ideas, asking around to find how do you get wallpaper printed. And I used it a couple of times. And so when it was time when Chasing Paper came along, I already had that, process down. And for all my collections, I design them myself. I work with an artist or artists for artwork or design files or whatever. And then I pitch collections. So it's not like I walk into a room and there's a bunch of ideas that the brand has laid out for me that I put my name on. Right. I've done the work ahead of time, and I've done plenty that have fallen short or not been picked up that I'll design and pitch, but I do the work ahead of time. I design it. That's sort of the answer. And with my fabric collection, basically my initial ideas are what ended up as the collection. They got tweaked and scaled differently a little bit, but there's the fact that I did all the work ahead of time, I think, was what was a big help. It wasn't just me asking, can I have a collection? It was, I designed this collection, and here's the inspiration behind it. Here's artwork files. Here's renderings to show the scale and how I would use it. And here's, it's like a whole pitch.
Yeah. Because they can imagine
the whole story. Yeah.
They can imagine, you're already working in good faith on this, that you've already put creative energy into it, instead of just coming to Sunbrella and saying, I want to do a collection with you. What ideas do you have? That puts all the actual work and the emotional weight of the collection back on them. And they're hoping for that more collaborative approach where if you're going to put your name on it, hopefully you feel really proud of what's out there. And it's not just ideas they're recycling in a new colorway from a past catalog.
Yeah, I imagine you can get to a certain level and they
roll out
do the work for you. But
Ellen's probably not designing her own rugs.
No, probably not.
No. But I really enjoyed this process. That's what's really creatively fulfilling for me. So
yeah,
concepting it and designing it, and it's sort of like, even the ones that have fallen flat, it's something I invest in. It's not necessarily a huge investment, but it's manageable, from an going out of pocket marketing expense. Yeah. And you sort of see this when you get one product collaboration, sort of more start to come your way. So I think now that I have a couple under my belt, I'm getting more people coming to me rather than me pitching. But it's also, it's tricky, because these brands are getting designers pitching, asking for collaborations, I'm sure dozens a week, or more. And so you've got to check your ego. And if they say no, you've got to be professional about it. And
it's not
like, okay, fine, I'm not going to shop. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll stop buying from you because you rejected me. But it's like, well, then we are never going to end up with anybody. If you break up with everyone, you won't have anyone left behind.
Right. Also, I have a recognizable brand style aesthetic, and I think that's important, because I can put my stamp on things and it looks like my collection, and it's not like a lot of Pindler didn't need me to do a line of neutral bouclés.
They got that covered.
They got that covered, and they'll do that better than I can. But it's and so if sort of another reason you brought it up at the beginning, but having sort of a signature style, I think, is another kind of, you have to have that if you want to be designing collections for people, or you need to have such a massive social media following that's what's going to sell you. You need to have one of those two things.
Because really, you need to help them sell it. So I'm imagining you're giving them kind of a marketing strategy in your pitch, in a way that even if it tweaks, they you're helping sell a full story that they can sell, because
Yeah.
you need to help them make sales.
Yeah. You're really like, I mean, it's a ton of work. The designing the collection happens years in advance, and then that's done. And then it's just about, promoting it. And I really want to work hard to do that for all my collaboration partners. I enjoy it. So that's part of it. It's fun, and it's cool to see other designers and people use my stuff. And it's a different sort of satisfaction than like doing the residential project, reveal. Like it's a different creative sort of satisfaction.
Yeah. And you're getting paid for it. There's, I don't want to ignore that there is a money part of that. That's probably really nice to know. Oh, it was this, or it was this many projects instead. And so now there was another way to fulfill that creativity and still get compensated for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's harder to kind of anticipate that. With a design project, I know what my fee is going to be. With the project collaborations, it's based on sales. So,
yeah,
and so it's a little unpredictable. And so I don't count on that. I don't count on the sort of the licensing fees. It's more like fun money that I get to use for other sort of project or ideas or travel, or if I want to go to High Point out of pocket, I can kind of count on some of my licensing fees to be covering that stuff.
Yeah, that's your upgrade stuff.
Totally.
And it's a long game, right? Like it can be still trickling in for years and years. Like I've heard other people with.
Yeah. In general, you can, the products stay in the collection, or the collection sticks around for a while. So, and it's also, like I'm involved in the photo shoots and the label on the swatch and stuff. And it's like really fun to do that stuff, because it's just, you get to really, that's what sort of, it's details and it's stuff that we care about and notice, and it's just like fun to have a hand in every part of it, not just the sort of the pattern itself.
Yeah.
That sounds really fun.
Those are your babies.
I'm, like they're sort of extension of my coworkers, my brand partners. And it's, I wouldn't want to work with any brands that are jerks and vice versa. So, because we're really like stuck together for a while, the design department, the marketing department, sales teams and stuff. And so it's really fun to be getting to know different people around the country that are involved in these projects.
So this will be airing after the fact, but will you be at High Point this week?
Nope, I'm skipping High Point this week. I'm going to Round Top for the first time.
Oh, fun.
I know, it's always a pick.
I've never been, but opportunity came up. I was at High Point in the spring. I usually go once a year, not twice.
Yeah.
So maybe next spring, but it's Round Top this time.
Are you renting like a big truck? Is that like the plan?
Yeah, are you buying?
I'm not there. I'm doing a book signing, knowing the sort of the dynamics of like vintage shopping. I'm going to find so much stuff because I don't have a way to get it back this time. So
who can I hitch a ride with?
Again. Well, I'll go again in the spring, and I'll have like a full trailer, and I'll find nothing. So no, I've never been. So this time it's sort of like going to High Point for the first time. You just got to go to get the lay of the land.
Yeah.
Scout it out.
And then you go back the next time to really, when you're in it, to win it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you can power through a whole lot, make decisions faster too, and know when something is truly unique or it's worth it or.
Right. This is scouting.
I like it.
That sounds really fun though.
You mentioned that you're going for your book signing. Can you tell the hotties who are listening a little bit more about that and where they can grab that?
Sure. Yeah, my latest book is called Lodge. It's an indoorsy tour of America's national parks. And it's a book about the historic national park lodges, picture book from an interior designer's perspective. So it's not about the hiking trails, but it's about the historic lodges and how they were built and when, and who the architect was and where the furniture is from and what the rug patterns mean. It's for indoorsy folks that appreciate the outdoors from
inside,
from the inside. And came out in April, and I've been on a book tour since then, basically. And yeah, it's available wherever books are sold. It's a nice holiday gift, and it was an interesting one. My first book's called Modern Americana, which was my portfolio, and this is lodges. I didn't design any of these places; they're just sort of my stuff I'm into and wrote about.
That's fantastic. I think it's really great too for to like remind people when we're thinking of national parks, even that there's something about the environments that's created around them in campsites and picnic locations, and then the lodges, and that there is part of that experience that is the nostalgia that people think of eating their peanut butter and jelly sandwich with their parents, as they're going through parks or whatever they're doing. So there is an experience that's been built around that feels maybe not uniquely American, but it's definitely a big part of the outdoor American culture, which is kind of exciting to see it documented this way.
Yeah, and that's kind of the feedback that I got, that I've been getting at these events, is people say, "Oh, I went to the Grand Canyon when I was a kid with my parents," or that's side one, and side two is, I'm going to use this as a motivation to go to these places that I've never been to, just because I wanted to photograph the lodges in the same way that I photograph my design projects, which is make them as inviting as possible. And it was hard to find photos of the lodges that were in that style. So that was sort of that was the idea of the book.
Yeah, it's usually they're a very kind of hotel-oriented type photos where it's just, this is what the bathroom looks like, this is what the room looks like, or here's where the waiting room is, and it doesn't feel like lifestyle-oriented at all, or give you an idea of the comfort that will be there.
And the detail.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, well, it's because they're really difficult to photograph from
so dark, right?
Technical standpoint, and just like organizationally and planning wise, there's a reason why these photos didn't exist.
Yeah.
Beyond just not. Yeah. So that was the point.
No, that's really cool. Now it's like, for a lot of people, it's a way that they can reference back to it. That's better than just like a picture on a postcard, to have better photography to look back on some of their trips. So, and I agree, the cover is, for hotties who are listening, you haven't seen it, but yeah, the cover is definitely giving holiday vibe energy. So I think that's a fantastic idea on that.
Yeah, it's a perfect gift. The cozy throw. Well, thank you, Max. Can you tell our audience where to find you in general on social and whatnot?
You can find me on Instagram. It's at Max W Humphrey, or my website's just maxhumphrey.com. And you can find me in Portland, Oregon.
Don't go find him, guys. Don't go to look for Max.
He'll be look for the guy in plaid. Look for the guy in flannel in Portland.
Flannel and Birkenstocks in Portland. Thank you so much, Max, for being so open and honest with our listeners. I think they're really going to love hearing more all about your creative process and everything you shared. And that's really a rarity for a lot of us to hear. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Did I run my mouth this time?
I love it.
You did great.
I give away all my secrets. That pink paint color is called, I just looked it up the other day. It was a Benjamin Moore color, and I think it's called Sweet Taffy, for anybody wondering.
Okay.
Yeah, Sweet Taffy. Benjamin Moore Sweet Taffy.
See, you got the secret, and they didn't even. There you go. They didn't even have to book an expert session. Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Max. Until next time.
Okay. Stay hot, designers.
Thanks for listening to the Hot Young Designers Club podcast.
For more on what we talked about today, check out the show notes.
Your support helps us grow, so share with your design besties.
And subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts.
Our conversations continue on Instagram.
And be sure to download our monthly resources on our website and our Patreon.